Dobar dan, 23.2. Ovo je, znači, ovo vam je školski primjer, ovo moram staviti. Znači, školski primjer kako djeluje crkvena vjerska mafija. Ovo su meni napravili u Hrvatskoj i to vam je takozvani taj američki maga konzervatizam. Sad pogledajte, znači, način mafijaški, šta oni rade i kako ljude ucjenjuju da im se moraju ispričati samo zato što se nisu slagali sa mišljenjem nekakvog glavonje i nekakvog vođe.
Put on administrative leave. Another one who was put on leave just said, the heck with this, ended up resigning altogether. We're talking about communication bans.
Zabrana komunikacije, pazi ovo,
On top of that, we have members of the church absolutely outraged, some of them very high-end donors of the church that are threatening and saying, we gonna back out of here. We don't like how you're handling this. The whole situation is just, it's getting really embarrassing. I have a lot to say about it. We'll go into more on it here in just a second. But before we do, I would like to welcome all of you to Not By Sight News. Yes, a blind Christian guy here reporting to you, reminding you as always that we walk by faith, not by sight. For someone like me, that's kind of my only option. If you guys can do me a huge favor, please hit the like button for me. Help me reach my 1,000 likes goal on this video so we can get this information out to a wider audience. It's a quick and easy way to support what I do. Also, share the video across your social media platforms to further increase its visibility. Make sure you hit the bell, enable all the notifications so you're never missing a video that I put out. We are also trying to become more viewer supported here on the platform, as our videos typically struggle in the algorithm up against the more popular and cited platforms with all the bells and the whistles. I just do a no-nonsense news approach. I know a lot of you like that. Unfortunately, it just does not usually get out there to more people in the algorithm. So if you want to try and help me to offset the visibility that these videos do not get, think about supporting. There's a couple different ways you could do it. One, you could become a month trying to either say that it's about left or it's about right. The church is either too left or they're not enough to the right. To me, in my opinion, if you want to make it about that, that's on you. Everybody has their own opinion, okay? But for me, the way that I have viewed this entire story is one based off of terrible, poor leadership. No matter, and that's how I'm looking at it. Again, through a lens where the question is this how church leadership should be operating? Okay, we'll talk about the issue, and you know, people are going to debate that.
Kakva crkva, mafija, organizacija,
and I will continue to say,
u ime vjere, zloporaba vjere.
Flag of Jesus. I do not fly a denominational flag. Okay? I do not fly a political flag. There are people who will fly both, and they will tell you that each one is the best one. Their denomination is the best, and their political party is the best. Okay? And as I always tell people, none of those things are going to get you to heaven. Okay, it's about your relationship with Christ. He is the one. He is the one who went to the cross and took it all upon him. All of the sin of the world for us so that we could be born again, so that we could have everlasting life. Okay? I look at it that way because I'm not getting to heaven based on my denominational card or my political party card. None of that matters. If you want to be into that, that's fine. There are some that are just far too obsessed and caught up in it all. Okay? So I want you to understand where I am coming from in my commentary on this situation and where it is now gone to. Okay? So, that being said, we're We're talking here about First Baptist Church Orlando. Okay? They've been in the news a lot over the last several years. I spoke about this earlier in the week when it started making the news cycle, but we have even more information now about this situation, including the name of somebody, one of the other church leaders that we did not previously know, but now we do. Also an email.
Samo da dodam, sve ove kukavice, ovi kukavički kvazi pastori, protestanti, luterani, evangelici, kako god da se nazivate, katolici, karizmatici, vi ste svi takve kukavice da te Bog dragi sačuva. Znači, niti jedan jedini nije onog razbojnika Alića prozvao, lažnog apostola, koji tuži ljude po sudovima, bivše članove. Znači, sramota od zemlje, zato je ovakvo stanje u zemlji. Užas. Niko od vas nema kičmu suprotstaviti se ovima na vlasti kao Chuck Baldwin, kao što je prozvao Trumpa, da je amoralno čudovište. Kukavice. Za vas, kaže Biblija tamo di u Jeremiji ili Izaiji, kaže, to su psi koji niti lajati ne mogu, beskorisni. Eto, to ste vi, beskorisni.
Email that went out to
Bljutava
campus
sol.
members about the entire situation. So we're going to get into that.
Ne
now.
znate
Now,
razlikova
this
dobro od zla.
really centers around the Horizon West campus, okay? Horizon West is the satellite campus that started in 2018 by First Baptist Orlando, okay? So they've been around since 2018. Chris Ogden is the campus pastor there at Horizon West, and he is loved, okay, understand, by so many in that church. They look at him as a really good pastor, as a really good teacher. They trust him. They believe that he is the right man to lead the campus.
Addictions, chronic disease.
Da, takvih dobrih se moraju, ovi zli se rješavaju dobrih. Sad ćete ovo vidjeti.
So, outrage ended up ensuing after it was announced by church leaders that Pastor Chris Ogden was placed on administrative leave for a disagreement during a leadership staff meeting. Now, what was this meeting about?
Pazi ovo
It
sad.
had to do with TPUSA, that a scheduled event, this was part of their
Turning Point USA, kao što sam već prije rekla, to je pseudo-kršćanska organizacija koja promovira cionizam, koji promovira ovaj genocidni Izrael. Charlija Kirka su ubili, on je bio vođa te organizacije koji je po kampusima tamo debatirao sa djecom. Njega su roknuli zato što je odbio više surađivati s Izraelom i nije htio primiti više njihove novce za njihovu propagandu. Zato što se govorilo, znači, Izrael želi izazvati rat sa Iranom preko kretena Trumpa. Eto, to vam je to. I sad ovaj čovjek je postavio pitanje, taj Turning Point je trebao imati konferenciju u toj crkvi. Idemo dalje.
Heaven Crowded Tour, and they were going to be coming to First Baptist Orlando. Okay? Now, I know there's people that have a lot of feelings about TPU. Again, I'm just giving this to you from strictly a perspective that's looking at this.
Znači, jednostavno se radi o kultu. Te konferencije koje oni sad imaju, koje vodi njegova od Krka kakti ta žena, udovica, koja je vatromet napravila kad je ovaj umro, zato što je ona preuzela organizaciju vrijednu ne znam koliko milijuna dolara ili milijardi čak. I ona sad imaju turneju okolo po crkvama, pod imenom nešto kao napunimo nebo. Ne pod tim imenom, ne. I sad idu okolo po crkvama i pecaju ljude, tako da čuvajte se toga, nije ona nikakva ucviljena udovica, ona je Mossadova kćer, ona radi cijelo vrijeme za Izrael i tog Charlija Kirka, on je bio je korisni idiot kojeg su iskoristili i odbacili. A šta đavo drugo radi? Prvo te iskoristi, onda te odbaci. Eto, to vam je to. O tome se radi u vezi ove crkve. Idemo dalje.
To see whether or not this is proper leadership or not. You can have an opinion one way or the other on TPUSA and First Baptist Orlando, all right? But during the meeting, Pastor Chris and another worship leader, and we'll get to him in a second, but they expressed concerns over the rally being held at the church and whether or not that it was an appropriate setting to bring something like that into a church. Okay?
Politika.
Nothing wrong with that criticism. Okay?
Ne žele politiku u crkvi, gotovo.
At all. And there was even an announcement that one of the senior pastors, First Baptist Orlando, David Uth, had made not long after this, because a lot of people in the church didn't even know that the event had even been scheduled, but it was on the calendar of the church as part of their tour stop. But
još jedna obmana, ljudi.
David Uth had promised the congregation that they would have oversight over the speakers and that it would be strictly an event that was centered around Jesus and not on politics. However, if you look at past events that they've held, of course, I mean, the political themes are there, right? Kind of hard to avoid that in their events, whatever you want to call them. So that was announced to the church. Okay, now in the meeting that they had was prior to Uth making the announcement to the congregation. But because Pastor Chris Ogden had spoke out against the leadership during this meeting.
Zašto nije svim članovima crkve bilo objavljeno da su dogovorili konferenciju sa Turning Point? Zašto nisu svi ljudi znali za to? Pa da se svi ljudi izjasne. Nego su napravili privatni sastanak gdje je čovjek negodovao u vezi toga, njih dvojica pastora, znači dobrih ljudi, provjerenih ljudi, i pogledajte sad ćete vidjeti šta su im napravili. Ovaj jedan se čak išao ispričavat, ljudi moji. Tražili su od njega da se javno ispriča, to ovaj razbojnik od mene traži, ali pa ne ispričavam se ja sotoni. Pa kaj ste ludi, ja se za istinu ne ispričavam nikome.
He was placed on administrative leave for disciplinary purposes.
Pazi ovo, zbog disciplinarnih razloga, ej. Majko mila.
Just disgusting that they made this man do this. They made him do a video apologizing to his church campus and to the church leadership for speaking out of line.
Yeah.
And he also said in the video
to vam
that
je
he's
kult.
currently submitting to a restoration process.
Pazi ovo, proces obnove.
Where he's working with the church leaders to
sekta prokleta, sekturina.
They can all learn from this and grow together and all
Kult,
that
sekta.
stuff, right?
Užas, zlostavljanje ljudi, čovječ. Strašno.
You want to put him on leave, put him on leave. Fine.
Strašno. Ko to nije doživio, ne zna šta je to.
Make him do a video to a congregation who, by the way, is supporting him and thinks that he was completely treated unfairly, as do I.
Pa zašto šute onda?
You do that
Kukavice.
because what? It's supposed to send a message that you don't cross the senior leaders, because First Baptist Orlando, they have a 3 senior pastor leadership structure. They changed it up recently, okay? You know, it's Uth, it's Danny DeArmas is another one that's on there, and I believe Pastor Trey is another
Sve
one.
se
that
to
they
treba
make up the
iščačkat
3.
jako dobro.
So
Ove crkve kod nas
it's
isto.
embarrassing that they
Sve
make
to
him
treba
do it.
iščačkat
Right? They
jako
wanted to
dobro.
try and make an example out of him, in my opinion, of what happens when you cross church leadership. bottom line is, you
farizejčine.
don't do it, right? Now, Pastor Chris had a different opinion. Didn't think that the church would be an appropriate place for what has many times turned into political rallies with TPUSA, right? So we also heard that around this same time, and by the way, we don't know how long this administrative leave is going to last. We have no idea. But we also found out at that time that another worship leader, at the time it just said an unnamed worship leader, had resigned. Okay? We just didn't know who they were.
Bravo.
Because they too were in the meeting and they
Nema
apparently
šta
spoke out
radit
of
među
turn.
bandom,
Now
tako.
we have some new information on this, which is courtesy of Baptist News Global. They had an update on this, and they talked about hearing from many members of the church who, again, are very upset at the way that their pastors and leaders over at Horizon West have been treated. Here's what we now know. In addition, after that video went out from Pastor Chris, there was an email that was sent out to members of the
Slušajte
Horizon
sad
West
ovo.
campus. And look, if we have anybody watching
Dno dna.
from Horizon West,
Dno
if you
dna
want to chime in
riječ
with your
života u
thoughts, we'd love
Hrvatskoj.
to hear
Dno
from you
dna.
in the comment section on this.
I svi vi koji me
But the
znate.
email was sent from another pastor. There's so many
Sram vas
pastors.
može
My
biti.
goodness. This one was Pastor David Lovelace. What an appropriate last name.
30 godina.
Because we're definitely seeing here
Sramota.
less love. Just reverse the name. We'll call him less love. Because they showing no love here to Chris Ogden or to the other worship leader. Now, Lovelace is the executive, you guys know me with my pastor titles. He is the executive pastor of campus and discipleship. Add another one to my list. You guys know, I talk about, right, the pastor titles. We got the parking lot pastor, which is my ultimate favorite. The food and beverage
Strašno.
pastor. Look, everybody
Titule si daju koji bolesnici je, Bože, sačuvaj.
Everybody's a pastor. Anybody can be a pastor.
To ni djeca ne
right?
rade.
And you can give it a fancy one. Executive, youth pastor, missions pastor. Again, I said it. Food and beverage pastor. The parking lot pastor. The guest experience pastor. Y'all let me know some of your pastor names. You guys have done it before. They've been really, really funny. But yeah, Loveless. Less Love. Whatever you want to call them. Emails the members of the Horizon West campus and informs them. It says this. Now I'm summarizing. You can go read the article over on Baptist News Global if you want to. But he says that some of you may have heard, some of you may have not, that your campus pastor, Chris Ogden, has been paid, now here's the key words, has been placed on a paid administrative leave. So he's getting paid. No, this is one of those situations where, good, I think he should get paid. A lot of other pastors that I talk about in other churches that have done
Zašto je
some
maknut nije
horrible
bitno,
things,
ne?
they get paid and they should. Well, good, I'm glad that Chris is getting paid here. Although, I question whether or not he would actually want to stay here with Horizon West and First Baptist Orlando with the way that he's been treated. But the email goes on to say here that both Chris Ogden and Pastor Socrates Perez, so there's the name that we did not know. Previously, he was just known as the unnamed worship leader who had resigned. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Socrates. Socrates Perez actually grew up, okay, at First Baptist Orlando when he was much younger. But prior to coming over to the Horizon West campus, which I believe was around 2021 to do worship, he actually worked and did worship and helped in that department over at Saddleback Church over there in California, okay, formerly Rick Warren's church, right? So he did worship over there for many years, and then he came over to Horizon West because he wanted to be back within the community that he grew up in. So he was a part of this meeting as well, and you had Lovelace here talking about how during the meeting they were discussing the TPUSA situation. They said Pastor Chris and Pastor Socrates, they disagreed. Okay, now they said that they did not, they weren't put on leave just for simply disagreeing, but it was more because they spoke out of turn. It was the way that they went about it, which they called it inappropriate. they inappropriately spoke out in the meeting. We don't know what that means. Inappropriately spoke out. I don't know. Did they drop a naughty word? We don't know. Right? But they spoke out of turn. They called it inappropriate. And they put them... Now, at the
Pa
time...
moraju izmisliti
they
nešto
placed them both on
lažovčine, lažljive.
leave. However, Lovelace says that in the email that Pastor Socrates decided that it was best for him that he would just resign altogether
Tako je,
and not
svaka čast.
fully submit to the restoration process that was going to be handed out.
Da te ponižavaju tako
Look, I look at that and
užasno.
say, good for Socrates. Good for Socrates for getting out of there.
Tako je.
Okay? Because that ain't the way you're supposed to lead a church. If that's the way that you're going to treat people, then good, you should go up and leave. You shouldn't stick around. There's no point. But the way that this was framed in the email, when Lovelace says that oh, well, you know, he chose to just resign rather than just submit to the restoration. What does he need to be restored for what?
Da,
If anybody
da.
needs restoration, it's the other leaders. It's not him. It's not Ogden. No, it's Uth, it's the Armis, it's the rest of them. Lovelace, these guys. So he got out of there. Now, he also went on to say that, now, many of you may have heard some other things that Socrates said, like questioning the leadership structure and, you know, other ways that we handle things. But, you know, we're not going to speak on that, Lovelace said. We're focusing right now, the way he said this, we're focusing right now on reducing speculation, calming anxiety, and approaching things in the way of the Lord. You know, the way that they write some of these statements.
Koje su to kukavice, ljudi moji, ti sektaši, te vođe, tih sekturina, ti vukovi u janjičoj koži. Kako se oni boje da ljudi ne dođu do informacija, to je zastrašujuće. Na sve moguće načine će se boriti rukama, nogama, zubima, samo da ljude zadrže u svojoj prokletoj sotonskoj mreži. Potrgajte te mreže đavolske s kojima vas drže u ropstvu, ti lažovi. Imaš svoj razum, imaš svoju savjest, čovječe, daj razmišljaj svojom glavom. Pogledajte šta su ljudima napravili. Samo zato što se nisu složili da ova cionistička, pseudokršćanska, političko-vjerska organizacija dođe u njihovu crkvu, a vodstvo crkve nije čak niti članove obavijestilo o tome. Razumijete šta rade? Lova, pare, ljudi moji, plaćeni su za to, to su špijuni. To su špije, lažni učitelji, to treba isterat van iz crkvi.
It's just, wow, it's something else. So he's gone. Socrates Perez is gone. And a lot of people are not happy about that. They love how he's handled worship over there at Horizon West. And where he goes from here, look, we don't know, right? But let me keep going with this, because it gets even worse. As it goes to Pastor Chris Ogden of Horizon West, and keep in mind, this letter went out after, and I'm going to talk about it in a second, but this letter went out after the TPUSA event had already been canceled. It was announced, then it was canceled.
Neka, bravo, dečki,
so a lot
tako
of us
je.
thought at the time, when I talked about this the first time around, that, well, because that the event was canceled, well, they should just bring Pastor Chris back. Like, is he going to continue to stay on leave? A lot of us have these questions. It looks like he is still going to stay on leave.
Zašto je otkazano? Tko je otkazao? Turning Point je otkazao. Zašto? Zato što su čuli da se svi pastori ne slažu sa time. A? Čim malo pokažete zube kako se vragovi povlače. Idemo dalje.
Even though the TPUSA event is no longer taking place. But David Lovelace goes on in the email to say that for Pastor Chris Ogden, who still remains part, he hasn't stepped down fully, not yet, maybe he will, but he says that Pastor Chris is still, at this time, on leave, and he is submitting again
Na
to the
dopustu,
restoration
Na
process.
lajni
Now,
psečaj.
listen to what this restoration process
Proces
consists
obnove.
of.
Majko
This is
mila.
ridiculous. they have instituted here against
Kaznili su
Pastor
ga.
Chris a communications ban.
Pazi
So now
ovo.
they're taking away his right to free speech. They
Unbelievable.
have told him he cannot have any communication with the members of his church, Horizon West, no communication with them whatsoever, no
Isuse Bože.
communication with staff. The only communication that he can have is with
Isuse
top
Bože.
senior leadership as
Jer vam jasno što ta sekturine proklete rade? Jer vam to jasno? Kako rade razdore među ljudima? Užas jedan. Znači, to su napravili meni, to su napravili stotinama, ak ne tisućama ljudi u Hrvatskoj. Takve razdore da je to užas jedan u brakovima, u obiteljima, prijateljstva koja su se godinama stvarala, jedno smeće uništi samo tako. Evo, ovakav jedan primjer. To vam je to. Zabranjuju ljudima da komuniciraju s ljudima koji više ne dolaze. Nazivaju ih djecom đavla, otpadnicima od Boga. Šta je ovaj bolesnik o meni svašta pisao po Facebooku? Pa mislim zastrašujuće. Bože sačuvaj, užas jedan.
it pertains to his restoration and meeting with other executives for counseling, for prayer, whatever it is
Mafia.
you're going to have him do.
Mafija.
So they've instituted a no communication ban.
A najjače mi je kak su na sudu svi ko papagaji govorili, dovuko je tamo 6 svojih svjedoka, pod navodnicima, od toga njih 2 me nikad u životu nisu vidjela, šta su one imale svjedočiti o čemu. A svi su govorili njemu u korist i svi su govorili jednu te istu rečenicu. Mi smo najtransparentnija crkva u Hrvatskoj. Znači, to kad vam kažu da su najtransparentniji, to govori Trump. Da je njegova administracija najtransparentnija, to znači da su najgori, da su lopine, što je dokazano. Evo, DORH je dokazao. DORH je dokazao samo jednu mrvičice.
Why do you think they don't want him talking to the members of the church? Right? And it's probably more too like they don't want the members talking to him.
Aha.
Because they're worried about church dissent. Well, guess what? It's a little bit too late for that. You've already divided that church.
Da, evo,
You
da,
already have people leaving.
da.
You have people that have been big tithers that are getting out of there and going elsewhere now. But apparently that doesn't worry the leadership. That doesn't intimidate them in the least bit. I guess for them, it's more appropriate for them, more important, that they just push their campus pastors around, try and humble them, and make them submit to the man of God, touch not God's anointed, right? This is a joke.
Užas.
This is an absolute joke. A communications.
Sramota i užas.
You've already just ruined this guy in every way
Odrasli
you
ljudi.
possibly could.
Di vam je zrelost, ljudi, di
First
vam je
making him do
mudrost.
that ridiculous video, apologizing. He had nothing to apologize for. Okay? Even if he did, he could do that directly with the church leadership. And again, if you wanted to put him on leave, then fine. But they took it a step too far. They took it a couple steps too far. That video was not necessary. And to tell him that he can't communicate with certain people, wow. I mean, and all the while they try to dress it up and say that, well, this is all in the benefit of the Lord, and we want to do things the Christ-like way. You ain't doing nothing the Christ-like way. You're doing things your way.
Tako je.
Because you love your power.
I kukavice
Because
si.
you love your title. It's a joke. Now let me talk about something else and we'll wrap it up. What happened with the whole TP USA scheduled event? The church has a newsletter called The Beacon, okay? And that newsletter went out after it was said that the event was canceled. Now again, when I first talked about this, there was a lot of confusion as to who it was that canceled the event. Was it First Baptist Orlando or was it TP USA themselves? In the newsletter that went out, it informed the congregation that they had received a letter from TP USA, okay? And it was it was that Monday after Valentine's Day that they got this letter from TP USA. So in the letter, TPUSA basically said that after prayerful thought and consideration, we believe that it is in the best interest of both sides if we postpone this event for the time. And it's canceled. Okay? It's not like it's postponed to a different date. There's no new date that's been
Bravo,
announced.
dečki, bravo, dečki, vas
So they
dvojica
said that,
ste ih
you know, for the best
satrali,
interest for
tako
everybody,
treba. To je
we're going
žrtva,
to postpone this for now. But
to
we
je žrtva
appreciate
koju ste
all the
podnijeli.
hard work that you're doing, and we look forward to maybe doing something with you
Makni se
again
od toga.
in the future. So obviously, a breakdown here in how they could present what they wanted to with the event as opposed to what the church wanted. Whether that, again, had anything to do with political themes or not, we don't know. I'm sure that it did, to an extent. Maybe they didn't want certain speakers there, and TPUSA wasn't willing to agree to those terms. Whatever it was, well, they're not having it now. But in the aftermath of that, look what we have
Po
again.
crkvama idu,
We have a
po
campus pastor
crkvama.
who's been put on leave for speaking his mind inappropriately, according to the church
Strašno.
leaders. He's made to do an embarrassing video. Okay? He's been issued a communications ban with his own church members as a part of his restoration process, and a beloved worship leader has also quit the church. Good job, First Baptist Orlando. Way to go! I mean, I'm sure you're going to have people just lining up outside the door trying to apply for the new vacant worship leader position that
Možeš
you
si
now
misliti.
have. And you know what? Maybe soon too, the
Budala.
new campus pastor for Horizon West. We'll see if Pastor Chris comes back. I don't know why he would want to.
Chris,
I don't know, you know,
run,
maybe God will have another opportunity for him out
run,
there somewhere else, but
ne daj se
again,
ponižavat
this whole situation is just, in my
bulijima,
opinion, it's been an
zlostavljačima,
absolute disgrace.
sotonjarama.
In
Fuj.
every way. All that we discussed here today. Look, I want to hear from you guys on this. Sound off in the comment section. Maybe you attend the Horizon West campus or First Baptist Orlando. You've been following this entire story. Let me know. Sound off in the comment section. We always encourage everybody to get involved in the discussion, as it does help the video to perform better with more engagement. Don't forget as well our 1,000 likes goal.
Eto ljudi s čim se bavi crkvena mafija. Nevjerojatno. To su vam sekte, to su vam kultovi. Jer crkva je čovjek. Mi smo hram Božji, hram Duha Svetoga, a takvi uništavaju Božji hram i satraće ih Bog. Pogledajte, evo, čisto ovo vam je školski primjer. Pozdrav.